This is the 2020 Audi SQ7, and as the name implies, it's the sporty version of the Audi Q7 family SUV. But it's not just a little sporty like the SQ5. This thing is a monster. 500 horsepower, 570 pound-feet of torque in a three-row family SUV. And today, I'm going to review it. Before I get started, be sure to check out Cars and Bids, which is my new online enthusiast car auction website for modern cool cars. If you're looking to buy a cool car from the modern era, check out Cars and Bids. We have an amazing variety with live auctions happening all the time. If you're looking to sell a cool car from the modern era, Cars and Bids is the place to do it. You will get the most interest and the most money for your cool car. Check it out at carsandbids.com. I've borrowed this SQ7 from Audi South Coast, which is an excellent Audi dealership here in Orange County in Southern California that has all of the latest Audi models, including the SQ7, which is just coming out. Audi South Coast will also soon have the new RS6 Avant and the upcoming RS7. But when it comes to family performance cars, this one packs quite a punch. Like I said, 500 horsepower, 570 pound-feet of torque, 0 to 60 in 4.3 seconds, which is really impressive for a three-row family SUV. Then again, the price tag is also impressive. This one has a sticker price of just under $95,000. If you want something that is a family car and a luxury car and a performance car, well, you better be prepared to pay. And today I'm going to review the SQ7 and show you what it offers. First, I'll take you on a brief tour and show you a few of its most interesting quirks and features. Then I'll get it out on the road and see how it drives, and then I'll give it a Doug score. All right, I'm going to start the quirks and features of the SQ7 up here. One of the first things you notice when you climb inside is the interior lighting, which is pretty cool. There's sort of subtle light pipes placed around the interior for a neat effect. Not quite as alluring or exciting as modern BMW or Mercedes models, which have even more lighting in here to set more of a mood, but it is still pretty cool. And this car has a neat party trick. You see this little piece over on the dashboard that says Quattro on the passenger side? Well, that lights up. It's all LED back there, and you can see if you're in a dark garage or at night, this piece will be lit up, which is very cool. A nice little piece of attention to detail. Someone in Audi said, why can't we light that up? So they did it, and it looks really cool. And next up, also in the area that lit up Quattro on the dashboard, look above that and you can see what looks like a giant climate vent going from basically the center all the way over to the passenger side. That's actually deceptive. There are two climate vents in the center like most cars. There's one on the passenger side, and the thing between them is fake. It's just there to look like a climate vent for continuity of this interior. But I admit it does look better than a hole here that would draw your attention to the climate vents. Instead, it kind of conceals them. And it's the same deal right below that. You can see this black panel on the passenger side looks like it continues with one piece into the center screen when the screen is off. The screen will be on most of the time you're driving the car, but if you do have it off, this looks really nice, just like that kind of fake climate vent above. Frankly, this entire interior looks really nice. Audi has always gotten a lot of credit for making the best interiors, and this one is a great example. Fantastic materials, everything looks good, tons of attention paid to making it as beautiful, as modern, as high quality as possible, and it really shows a gorgeous interior in this SQ7. And next up, let's move on to some of the tech in this car. I want to start with the gauge cluster, which I still think is one of the very best in the car industry. I love how configurable it is. You change the views and you can see everything sort of moving all throughout the cluster to tailor its display to exactly what you want to see. And I love over on the navigation section, it still shows this Google Maps satellite image from above, basically telling you exactly where you are, where you're pointed in the full screen of the gauge cluster. BMW doesn't do this. Mercedes has something pretty similar, but this is still one of the very best gauge clusters in the car industry. Lets you configure it to show exactly what you want to see. And next up, we move on to the center screens. And I say screens because it is plural. You have an upper screen and a lower screen. The upper one controls most vehicle functions, your settings, your phone, your navigation, all that. The lower screen is primarily climate control, and you can see you can use it to turn on your heated seats, adjust the temperature, the fan speed, that sort of thing. Now, the one drawback with these screens is you can't just tap them to touch like your smartphone. Instead, you have to push down on the screens themselves with some force in order to confirm what you're selecting. And then it gives you some feedback that your push has been received. That seemed like a pretty reasonable way to do it when this Audi dual screen setup first came out, but in the basically 2 years since then, things have changed. Now, in most cars, you just lightly tap your selection, the screen does what you want it to do, like a smartphone. This is starting to seem unusually outdated for something that came out so quickly. But that's my only real gripe with these screens. Otherwise, fantastic technology in this car, really great, easy to use, intuitive, except for the whole tapping thing. And between that and the gauge cluster, this car has some of the very best technology in the luxury car world. And next up, we move on to the back of the SQ7. The first thing you notice when you climb back here is there's pretty good rear seat room. This front passenger seat is in a normal spot. I have good room for my knees, a couple of inches, and good room for my head, more than what you get in a BMW X5 or a Mercedes GLE. The Q7 doesn't really compete in the mid-size luxury crossover segment, but it's also a little too small to be in the large segment. It's sort of smaller than a BMW X7 or a Mercedes GLS, but bigger than an X5 or a GLE. It sort of straddles that line. There are some benefits and drawbacks to doing that, but one benefit is clearly rear seat room. It has more than most of its mid-size competitors. Beyond rear seat room, the big drawback here is a separate climate zone, and you can see all of the climate controls for it in the middle. You can adjust the temperature back here, the fan speed, all of that sort of stuff, so rear passengers can have their own temperature comfort in the back of the SQ7. And next up, we move on to the back of the SQ7 and the cargo area, which, as you can see, looks absolutely huge. Now, the reason it looks so large is because the third row is folded down. Cool thing back here is you can use a button to fold the third row back up. Just press this little button and the third row automatically comes up, so you don't have to pull anything or deal with any latches or levers. It's all electronic. Now, when the third row's in place, you can see there's still a reasonable amount of cargo space. Not huge, of course, but it's there. It's something, and that's a pretty good trick because this isn't a huge SUV. Having cargo space behind the third row is pretty neat to see in a vehicle this size because you can still use all three rows and get some cargo back here. Now, if you want more cargo space, of course, you can drop the third row again. Just press the button I already showed you the other direction, and then the third row goes back down again electronically, and it folds completely flat into the floor, and then you have a very large cargo area back here for very large cargo. And next up, the other notable thing you see around back here is the quad exhausts, which is typically the mark of a high performance car, which this is. Now, previous Audi S models have been sort of medium high performance. The S4, the SQ5, they're fast, but they're not show-stopping. This has 500 horsepower, 570 pound-feet of torque. It's really impressive. Twin turbocharged V8. This is a real performance car, and the quad exhausts are a nice giveaway. Although I must say, I also like on the outside of the SQ7 just how subtle it is. You wouldn't really know it's the high performance one unless you see the badge or the quad exhaust. That's basically it. Otherwise, it just looks like a Q7. This is a very subtle way to pack all of your kids in the back and do 0 to 60 in 4.3 seconds. It's really impressive. One other exterior item I like is the front turn signals. You can see they're on and they light up individually in a row, sort of like a construction zone sign. It's a very distinctive look, very modern Audi, and I just think it looks great, and it really looks great in this car. But anyway, now it's time to go see what a 500 horsepower 3-row SUV feels like. I'm gonna get it out on the road and drive it. All right, driving the SQ7. I can't believe that Audi has not done a better job of getting its S and RS models to the United States. The last RS4 was sold here for the 2008 model year. Meanwhile, C63, AMG, and the M3 have been doing so well. And this is another segment where Audi has lacked the performance SUV, the X5M, the GLE63, the GLS63, blah, blah, blah. Everybody has done it except Audi. So it's nice that they have finally seen the light and they're finally getting us the performance cars. This is where the money is made, the high end of the market performance cars like this. And Audi has just, for a decade and a half, given this market to BMW and Mercedes. And now with this car, it seems like it's coming back because 500 horsepower. This thing is quick. Really, really quick. I love it. I love this feeling. It's not dangerously out of control fast. Like the GLS63 has maybe hit the limits. But this is just kind of the right amount, and it's the right price. GLS63 more expensive. This is even way cheaper than a new X5M, and it's only down 100 horsepower, but it still feels really fast. Now, in terms of handling, no surprise, the SQ7 is not exactly the X5M. And interestingly, I just drove the X5M like 20 minutes ago. I'm filming both of them today, and this is not anywhere near as quick. The X5M is fast, but its really impressive thing is how quickly it steers, changes directions, handles. It's amazing. This is not that. Not only is it not a performance car quite on the same level, it doesn't have the same cost, but it's also just a larger, heavier vehicle. You're not going to expect the SQ7 to quite do that well. So what I would say is this is a great family performance vehicle for someone who's not necessarily interested in having the ultimate family performance vehicle, but they want something more engaging than your typical boring Q7 that makes you kind of fall asleep. Regular Q7 is a great car. Really good tech, really good interior, just like this, but it's not engaging. This adds an engagement factor that car doesn't have without adding a $125,000 sticker price like an X5M or like a Cayenne Turbo. And that's this car's big benefit. And I think it does really well. It is fun to drive. It has the practical third row seat, and it does feel pretty quick, even if it's not the quickest thing around. I think this is a great family SUV, and I really do love Audi tech and Audi interiors, and that's just sort of icing on the cake. And so that's the 2020 Audi SQ7. I have always complained that Audi has held back its high-performance cars from the United States market, but it looks like they are finally seeing the light and giving us the good stuff, including a 3-row family SUV that's faster than it has any right to be. For families interested in a little performance, that's a good thing. And now it's time to give the SQ7 a DOUGSCORE.
And the DOUGSCORE is here. The SQ7 actually does shockingly well. It only doesn't beat out the very best performance SUVs on the market. The reason is simple. It provides Q7 practicality, 3-row seating, and a comfortable interior, which a lot of performance SUVs don't have, with actually good performance, not just sort of good performance like some 3-row models. I expected the SQ7 to be pretty good, mostly okay, but after spending the day with it, I'm really impressed. It's a good family SUV and a good fun SUV. It does both very well. The SQ7's lone drawback is that it's quite expensive, no surprise.
This is the 2020 Audi Q... No.